Hey everyone, today we're taking a look at the Hero Toys Grommash Hellscream from World of Warcraft. Big thanks to Bombasby for sending this out to me for review. If you want to pick this figure up after the review, I'll have a link to Bombasby down in the description. Here's a look at the packaging. There's some art of Grommash here on the front. Mine does have a bit of a hole in it just from shipping, but that's fine. I don't really keep the boxes anyway. On the side it says Hero Toys, and we can see Gorehowl. Same thing on this side, and then on the back some art of Orgrimmar. There are also the MediToys stickers and a Horde logo on the bottom, as well as a little MediToys QR code down there. Even though this is branded as Hero Toys, it is made by MediToys. They just brand it as Hero Toys to get around the legality of an unlicensed character. And then Bombasby has it with the accessory set as well, so that'll just come in this black Hero Toys box. So here he is out of the package. I think he looks great aesthetically. He looks very accurate to how Grom looks in the Warlords of Draenor trailer. This is the Warlords of Draenor version, or at least the main timeline version before drinking the Fell Blood from Manaroth. Although some of the accessories we see later on will both confirm it's the Warlords of Draenor version and provide a bit of discrepancy there, which I'll get into a bit later. Taking a closer look at some of these details, I think this head sculpt is incredible. So many wrinkles and small details on the face. He has the tusks and nose ring. The eyes have a bit of a metallic to them, so they pop in the light. He has the tattoos coming down the chin there, and they look not fully saturated, like they're faded, and you can see the skin underneath a little bit. So I like that. He's just a cool looking orc. His neck is jutted a bit forward, which is accurate. And he has a bit of a unique hairstyle amongst the orcs. More of like a anime hairstyle look, I always thought, with the ponytail and the long hair. He also has a pretty neat asymmetrical design with one big shoulder pad. There's a skull on the front there that looks kind of like the Warsong Clan skull flag. Then some fur details here. It's painted pretty well. I think the armor on the top is painted a little bit better than the fur itself. Some reds and browns and a nice metallic silver for that. And another little skull on the back. He has a big chain coming down on this side and a strap for the shoulder armor on this side. The metallics on that are also painted very well. Some nice small stitching details and whatnot in there. And that comes up the back as well. And you can also see he's covered in tattoos. He has these like tribal spiral tattoos. And those are on both arms. He also has some like modeling on the skin to kind of break it up and give it a bit more texture. You can see like the little speckles and things throughout here that look really nice. So he's not just like one consistent kind of burnt orange. There's a bit more depth to it that I like. You can see there like some speckles on the chest. Some veininess to him. The vein that's on the chest here are painted. This one is as well underneath the armor. The ones on the biceps are not, but they still stand out in certain lights. I think he's got pretty good muscle groups there. Some more veininess on the back. Does have a peg hole in his back. On the back here you can see a bit more what I was talking about, where the tattoos aren't fully opaque. They're a little bit translucent, so you can kind of see the skin underneath, so it makes them look kind of faded, which I like. The back of the arm here, maybe a little bit heavy on the weathering. It doesn't look too bad on camera, but in person it looks a little bit inconsistent with the rest. Down at the hands, little face on the gauntlet there. More of that fur texture. And the gloves look pretty nice. You can't see the joint when this is pushed down, but when you're articulating the hand, you can see the joint a bit, but then you can adjust it to hide it again. So I think that's nice. You can see the joints in the elbows, of course, but I think they're color matched pretty well. It's not exact, but I don't think it stands out a ton or anything. Same gauntlet over here. And then he has the skull belt. I think that looks really good. There's a nice wash on that, so it brings out all the cracks and crevices. Some really nice detail there. We've got all the little rings and kind of leather texture here and little studs and rivets. So that looks really nice on the belt. And then on the back, more leather texture and stitching, like this is hide that's been stitched together. And it's asymmetric as well, so I enjoy that. I like an asymmetric design because it kind of keeps things a little more interesting visually, I think. All these little rivets are painted and they look really good. Down at his belt, this is some flexible plastic pieces, so they should get out of the way for articulation. This medley bit behind it is a little bit stiffer but still flexible. And those are all painted well as well. He does have soft goods for the pants. Some nice stitching coming down the front there. I think both the legs are the same, roughly. No, they're a bit asymmetric as well. The pants look pretty good, and I think they're baggy enough that they're not going to hinder articulation. It's not really a stretchy material or anything. Also has a nice small weave, so at this scale it doesn't look like he's wearing a burlap sack or anything. It just looks like appropriately scaled pants for him. And then on one boot he has some armor that is flexible. The other boot a bit more plain but still looks nice. Fur on both of those as well. And some metal sculpted details on the toes. Those are also nice and weathered. Some spikies on the back. And again, all the little rivets are painted, so I like that. I appreciate that detail. I like when companies paint all the small little rivets. No sculpted details on the bottom, but I think that's alright. It does have peg holes though. For accessories, fist hands will come on him in the package, but he'll also come with thumbs up hands. The hands are a bit stiff and they're on a long peg, so it does take a bit of force to get them off, but it doesn't feel like they're gonna break the peg or anything. Open grabby hands, pointing hands, and gripping hands, which of course will be used to hold his iconic axe Gore Howl. And I think they captured the axe well. There's some nice shiny metallic paint, and there's lighter metallic paint on the edge here, like a brighter silver where the rest is gunmetal. The skull on the top, which is nicely weathered, and the little spikies on the back. And it has those nice inset details. There's some nicks and scuffs on the blade that make it look old and used. And the leather wrap coming down the handle is sculpted nicely. And there are a couple different browns there to delineate the wrap around it and the main portion of the leather, as it were. Then the pommel. Also very nice silver with a bit of dry brushing on there. I like how on this handle there are bits that look like the leather's kind of like bulging out between the bits that are tying it down. I think that's a nice detail that could have been overlooked, but they did a really good job on that. Another accessory he'll come with that he can hold is this battle standard with the Warsong clan flag on it. If you're not aware, Grom is chieftain of the Warsong clan, so it makes sense he would come with this. You do have to tie the flag onto this yourself, and the flag itself is painted really nicely. It's got Like some darker airbrushing around the edges and around the edge of the face there. But then it leaves the center bits a bit lighter, so some nice depth. It makes it look a bit dirty and old. And then the skull is sculpted very well. One of the horns is broken off. Nice weathering on that. Nice and shiny silver again. Also for those spiky bits on the top. And more bone detail on the edge there. And the wood is sculpted nicely and has a wash on it to bring out the little details. It looks really good. And you can hold that in the gripping hand, but he also comes with this little adapter that you can slide it into. It's a bit of a snug fit. And then you can peg that into the peg hole on his back. And so he can just have that on his back as he goes into battle. And that looks pretty neat, and you can rotate it in the little clippy. And situate it how you want it back there. So I think that's pretty cool. And then for the wide open gripping hands, he comes with this cup. It doesn't hold it super securely. It'll stay in there for a little bit, but I think if you want it in there long term or to be moving around posing it with it, you might need a bit of sticky tack in the palm. And then in that cup we can see some fell blood. So there's some translucent green plastic in there. It makes it look like blood swirling around. Some symbols on the top. And metally bits on the bottom that are painted well. And so you can pose him drinking the fell blood from Manaroth if you want. Like a main timeline, Grom, pre-green. Or have him dumping that out for the Warlords of Draenor timeline. If you're not familiar with World of Warcraft, this is what makes their skin green. When there is an alternative belt buckle, you can just pop this one off. And pop that one on. That one looks pretty nice too. I think in some art he is depicted with having a skull with the horns on it. I like this one a bit more because I like the Warlords of Draenor depiction of him, and this is the one he has in that. But I think this is a good option too. It just maybe blends in a little bit with the skin tone and the other red bits on him, where I think this white one adds like an extra pop of color to break things up a bit. He'll come with an alternate yelling head, and this looks really nice, just like the neutral face that came on him in the package. I feel like it actually looks like he's yelling, and it isn't just the same sculpt with the mouth open. But inside the mouth is painted well. It's like a nice glossy red to make it look wet in there. Now we can see his top teeth. And he has a really nice profile. A little bit of detail sculpted on the top of the mouth as well, and a bit of a wash on the teeth to make those look dirty and unbrushed. And I don't know if I mentioned before, but he does have rings in the tusks. Well, in the tusks on this side, and then on the tusk on this side. He'll also come with this necklace that has a little bird skull on it with some sculpted metal accents, as well as some other little bone details. It has a nicely sculpted little rope that goes around the neck, and some nice weathering on the bone bits. And finally, he'll come with 2 night elf heads, as well as a bit of rope if you want to tie those up on the battle standard or something. And this is where some of the discrepancy would come into play, and I'm going to go on a tangent for a moment, because these night elf heads would seem to imply that this is from when Grom went to Ashenvale and began cutting down trees, which angered the night elves. In turn, he, his fellow orcs, and I believe some goblins, then killed some night elves and furbolgs, angering Cenarius. But at that point, he would have been green, because he would have drank the blood of Manaroth. But he didn't in Warlords of Draenor, so he didn't invade Ashenvale. So this version of Grom wouldn't have killed these night elves. He would have stayed in Draenor, which leads us to the extra accessory pack. And if you get that one of the accessories on there will be the head of Cenarius. And this is sculpted really nicely and painted pretty well. Like the skin tone could have used a wash, I guess. I guess it makes sense that the eyes are kind of just whited out since it's a decapitated head. And maybe it would be a little too gory if they painted the bits on the bottom there. The horns look pretty good. I like that they're nice and kind of jaggedy and semi-asymmetrical, but relatively the same. So, going to Ashenvale, cutting down the trees, killing the Night Elves, angered Cenarius, who's a demigod, who gives the druids their powers, and he came to fight Grom and the other orcs, at which point they would have been green, and Grom would have lost the fight, and then he'd have to go drink some more fell blood, get a little bit more juiced, and then he would come back as a fell orc, in which case he would be red with green veins, and then he can kill Cenarius. And this isn't any of those. This is burnt orange, brown, Grom from Warlords of Draenor. So it makes me think maybe they'll come out with an alternate color of him, either green from main timeline or red as a fell orc, perhaps. Or maybe not. And maybe they just want a fun little, like, nod to the lore with these. I don't know. Then also in this accessory pack, he'll come with an extra head. I think this is my favorite of the 3 heads. He has like kind of this asymmetrical snarl where the mouth is more open on one side than the other. But you can see more of the bottom and top row of teeth. And there's a wash in there that looks really nice. And I just think he has a really cool expression. So I'll probably keep this one on him most of the time. Then he'll come with an alternate version of Gorehowl, and it's not just the paint that's different, the sculpt is different as well. You can see these gold bits are sculpted on, and the wrap on the handle is different, and even the skull is a bit different, and these little gold bits on the back here, and the pommel. And I don't actually remember the differences or why it appears different sometimes. Let me know in the comments. I just don't remember if there's a specific reason for that, or just sometimes the drops or updated models look different. I like the pop of color this one adds, but I like the kind of rustic nature of this one. It's painted very well with this like bronze on the back and gold for these details. More spikies on the top. The spikies on the back are a bit more straight. I think maybe that's also a reason I like this one a bit more, because they're kind of curved in and look more like a bitey mouth. Handle is painted nicely. There's a nice wash on there. It's more of a light brown with a black wrap around that. And then the pommel is a bit more round and less gnarly. And finally we have the head of Manaroth, the Pit Lord I've been mentioning this whole time. And if you're not familiar with this guy or what a Pit Lord is, it's basically like a high-ranking demon in World of Warcraft. And this head is from Warlords of Draenor, when he's offered the demon blood by Manaroth, and instead of drinking it, he kills him and says that the orcs will never be slaves. And we can see the bright green blood dripping down there. One of the horns is broken off. There's a rocky base here, so you can set this on your shelf and display it, which is really cool. The sculpt is really nice. So this is sculpted and painted really nicely. I like the way that one eye is more closed than the other, continuing that kind of asymmetrical theme with the figure and accessories. Really nice paint going on here. It's like a green skin tone with some oranges underneath and a bit of red. The rocks are also really nice. And a bit of red paint on that broken horn. It's also a little bit glossy, like the scales are shiny and the mouth is shiny and wet. And then you can see this like cleaved section on the head there, where you can see the bright green paint. And you can actually use that to place Gorehowl. And I think that just makes for a really cool display. You can either have Grom holding the axe while it's in there, or just have it in there on its own. So I think there's a lot of potential there, and some really nice shelf presence. For articulation, there's a double ball joint at the head, so you can get some really nice movement out of that. Looking up, he's going to be a bit limited because of the hair, even though it is a little bit soft. The neck also juts forward, so that'll contribute to the limit there. But pretty decent. And then looking down, not a ton, just because of the way the chin is sculpted. It makes contact with the neck right there. Pretty good side-to-side tilt though, and with that double ball peg you can get all the little nuance posing, so I like that. All the hair, or the ponytails rather, on each head are on a little swivel. At the shoulders, these are like other Meditoys figures if you've handled those, where it's basically like a hinge that comes into a ball peg here, and then there's a floating cap. So that gives you like a butterfly joint. The arm can go up that much. This one isn't really limited by the shoulder pad since it gets out of the way. And then you can reach forward a bit using that butterfly joint. So he shouldn't have any issues holding his axe with two hands. And the shoulders can go back a bit as well on that. And you can shift it up and down depending on where you want the shoulders sitting in a neutral pose. Even though he is rather muscular and has the lats coming out on the back there, he can put his arms all the way down to the side, so I do like that. Swivel at the bicep, double jointed elbows that are going to be a little bit limited by the armor here. You can take that armor off, and if you do, he'll get a bit better range. Mine has a bit of paint transfer though. Ball hinged wrists, so there shouldn't be any limitations there. It will bump into this armor a little bit, but you can shift it up to pose it. And then you can resituate it to hide the joint. There's a ball peg at the diaphragm and then one at the waist. So just on that diaphragm joint, you can lean back quite a bit, and there isn't really any gapping in the front there. And forward pretty far as well until the chest touches the belt. And then with the waist, lean back a little bit further. It does bump into the belt there, so that's the main limiting factor. And then forward a bit further as well. Again, it feels like, well, no, I don't think the belt's really limiting it there. I think that's the most range you can get because the belt's kind of flexing out of the way. There is side-to-side tilt on both of those, and swivel. The swivel's primarily at the diaphragm because that's a bit rounder than the oblong waist. At the hips, these will go out about this much. Feels like perhaps they're limited by the pants in the crotch, but I think that's pretty good range for an orc. There is a thigh swivel under there. You can kick forward about this far and back just a little bit. Double jointed knees that don't feel limited by the pants at all, but the boot does bump into the back of the leg, so that's about as far as you'll get there. Is there a boot swivel? There is, so that's nice. And then these feet have a very heavy ratchet, and it feels like I'm gonna break the joint every time I use it, but they'll go back that far forward. Not very far. Kind of limited just by the sculpt and these straps bumping into each other, so I would have liked a little bit more range there. There is an ankle rocker that's pretty nice, and a toe hinge that is rather stiff, so that'll be useful for posing. So overall, pretty good range. I wish the feet weren't as stiff as they are, but otherwise for an orc, I think he poses pretty well. He also has a big ball peg at the shoulder, so you can pose that around and get it out of the way. I thought there was like a little connector here where you could take the armor off, but I think if you want to take the armor off, you would just pop the head off and then slip it. Looks like if you want to disconnect that, you would have to separate it from this chain that's on the belt, at which point you could then slip this over the head and take it off if you want. For size and comparisons, Grommash is standing at about 8.5 inches tall to the top of the head and closer to 9 to the top of his ponytail. Here he is with a couple other Medi-Toys figures, the Bloody Hands Morlock, that's the green orc there, and then the Necromancer, which is an undead Forsaken character. So you can see Grom is quite a bit bigger than even their other orc figures. Here he is next to a Jada Toys Scooby-Doo Mummy and Amazing Yamaguchi Batman Beyond. And here he is with an SH Figuarts Naruto and Marvel Legends X-Men 97 Nightcrawler. So overall, if you can't tell already, I like this figure a lot. I think it's really cool, and if you're a fan of World of Warcraft, I think you'll like it. Grom is a really cool character, just aesthetically, and I think they nailed it on this. I think they really captured his likeness, and I think he looks really accurate to that Warlords of Draenor trailer. And he's just gonna look really cool on a shelf. He's big and imposing, and I'm happy to have this one in the collection. So let me know what you think in the comments, or if I got any of the lore wrong. Also, if you want to pick up this figure, I'll have a link to Bombasby down in the description. Thank you again to Bombasby for sending this out for review. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, consider leaving it a like and a comment, even if it's an emoji of some sort. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day. Remember to be kind to yourself and others, and I'll see you next time.